Hi, everybody. Good evening, and welcome to Mo Knows Animal Services. I'm Mo Ivory, your proud Fulton County Commissioner for District 4, and I'm so glad you've joined us tonight for this important and timely conversation. Animal services are about so much more than lost pets or adoption days. They're a core part of our public safety system and our shared commitment to compassion and community care. Whether you're a pet owner, an advocate, or someone with concerns about animal welfare in your neighborhood, tonight's town hall is all about understanding how animal services function in Fulton County and how we can work together to improve them. I'm honored to be joined by the members of our Fulton County team. Joseph Bereswain, who is Director of Fulton County Emergency Management and Homeland Security, and Vernon Sawyer, Division Chief for Emergency Management and Homeland Security. And you might be wondering, well, what is emergency management and Homeland Security got to do with animal services? But we're gonna explain that to you very shortly. We're also excited to have representatives from Lifeline Animal Project with us also, because I know you might have questions for them. Fulton County's partner in animal shelter operations, who will share updates and insights from the field. Our goal tonight is very simple: to provide clear answers, helpful resources, and to open a space for your questions and your concerns. If you have a question at any point during the webinar, please type it in the Q&A box. My team and I will be monitoring that box all night long and through this event so that you can get your questions answered, okay? So let's get right to it. Let's dive in and open up for Q&A, and go ahead and just start putting your questions in as I ask some basic foundational questions so that you can understand how animal services work in the county. So Joe, I'm gonna go to you first. Thank you so much for being here. And I'm gonna ask you to please explain the structure and the relationship of Fulton County Emergency Management Services, Animal Services, and the contractor Lifeline. And of course, add in any other entities that you think play a role as well, perhaps our officers, to that question.
Sure, can you hear me okay, Commissioner?
Perfect.
Awesome. Good evening. So we emergency management in 2017, going into 2018, emergency management started the oversight of the Lifeline Animal Services contract. Before that, Animal Services sat under several other departments, to include Department of Health, Police, and others. We work also with the Fulton County Police Department, who does the animal cruelty investigations part of it, and assists us with investigating animal cruelty crimes. So we oversee the Lifeline project contract for the county and their day-to-day operations.
Great, thank you for that. Vernon, can you just give us a little bit of a briefing on how you support the department and what your day-to-day function is as the division chief?
Good evening, absolutely. So I am the direct link between the county and Lifeline. I support them, and I also monitor the contract to ensure compliance on both sides of the house, so to speak. But I also supervise any projects like maintenance that needs to be done, any corrective actions to the building. It's a brand new $42 million building. It's over 50,000 square feet, and it's a lot to keep up with, especially on a daily basis. So I also oversee the contracts for the maintenance of the building down to the cleaning of the hallways, which is a separate contract.
Okay, awesome. So, a lot of people have questions about some of the very day-to-day things that go on with Lifeline and the things that happen when, someone is just outside and sees a dog roaming. So I want to hit some questions that seem to just be like the normal questions that I get in my office a lot, and I'm sure a lot of the things that you come across every day, and just get some of those things answered. So what are the reports, processes, and challenges associated with like roaming dogs, particularly in cases where residents, the constituents will say, I called, but the dog is still here, or I called, but the dog is back at it went away, but now it's back at my yard again. Tell us a little bit about what that process is when someone calls with a call like that.
Chris, if you want to step in on this one, I do. Thank you very much for having us tonight, for hosting this, Mr. Commissioner Ivory. I do want to let you guys know, usually when you call in, the first thing you're going to reach an E911 dispatcher. That goes through the E911 system that Joe and Vern work very closely with. And it works well because they have a call center, so they're able to manage those types of calls. So you actually haven't reached a Lifeline employee at that point. That they would take all of the information for the call, get all of the details that you need, and then they would reach out to our team to dispatch an officer. I did want to point that out before Chris dives in with maybe some more details, because I want to encourage people. We understand their sensitivity and that sometimes people want to remain anonymous for a myriad of different very valid reasons, and you can do that. But when you're able, please make sure to give as much detail as you possibly can. Your phone number, where you're at. It's really helpful to have contact information for the caller, because one thing that we're really trying to work on, not only to make sure that we can find the pet and we'll have an easier time working the call, but also our team is really working on customer service to follow up with callers. And we know a lot of times people don't know what happens after you call in. And so that would be a good opportunity for us to be able to follow back up with the caller and close that communication loop.
So I just want to introduce Audrey Shoemaker, because I hadn't gotten a chance to introduce her prior, but she is the shelter director for us with Lifeline. And so in your role as shelter director, can you just tell us from day to day what your role and what you do?
Sure. I mean, I oversee the operation here at the shelter, and as well as the field. Chris Emerson is our field service director, so he oversees more directly all of the field operations. And when I say field operations, I'm talking about our field service officers, or a lot of people might know them as animal control officers. I oversee the shelter operations. We do adoptions, foster, a lot of different life-saving programming. We also have a community support team that is working with trying to keep pets with their people. So if an adopter or a pet owner just needs some extra support, and there's limited resources out there, and we know a lot of times people don't know where to turn. So we have a lot of programs too about trying to keep pets with their people.
Okay, and so when that first question to talk about the process of a roaming dog, when a person calls 911, then it's that call is routed to animal services so that it can then go, where did you say it goes?
Yes, that's a good question. It gets routed from the E911 center. The initial call goes into the E911 center.
Mm-hmm.
So when you call our phone number, it's 404-613-0358, option 2. Or if you hit 911, you're going to go to the E911 center. And those dispatchers are going to take the call. They're going to get all of the information, and then it goes into a system, CAD system, which is similar to what our police departments would use. And our field support team then sees all that the call information. They may need to reach back out to the caller to get some additional information. This is why it's really helpful to have those details. And then one of our officers is dispatched from the shelter.
Okay, and that's the field officers that you were just talking about, that you were referring to, like the animal control officers. And so if you call, I'm just going to give a very practical example. If I call at 10 o'clock and I say that there's a roaming dog in the front of my house that I'm very concerned about, I give all the information I possibly can. What is the time frame from that 10 o'clock call that an animal officer may be dispatched?
So it's going to vary. Once the call comes in, officers deal with priorities. So obviously your bites, vicious dogs and things like that, those will come first. Police assists and things like that, those are all priority calls. Whereas obviously strays are priorities They're just a little bit further down the list. And so we kind of look at it like that. So it depends on, it's kind of situational. It depends on how the calls, which calls are coming in and how many.
Okay, and so just, I think we're clear that the priorities go to the more violent things that are going on than a stray dog. But if now that 10 o'clock time frame has turned into 11 o'clock and nothing has happened, as a constituent or as a resident, what should I do? Should I just go to bed and forget about it, or what's my follow-up?
Well, field support should be reaching out to you to see if you still have eyes on the dog, or animal, to make sure that we get, did it go into your neighbor's backyard? So we get the most updated information possible. As far as what the caller can do, you can call back, give more information, express, your feelings about the dog, and we're going to make sure that we get to it as timely as we possibly can.
Okay, I'm gonna say right now that I had a series of questions that I was gonna ask that were prepared, but the queue from everyone in the audience is filling up so fast that I'm just gonna go straight to the questions that the residents want answered. And so I'm gonna start first by asking a question that I think is very important. Dominique, thank you for this question. What areas of the county are most of the calls from service coming from?
Most of them, a lot of them are South Fulton. We get a lot of calls in South Fulton. Probably that would be the most.
Okay, so most of the calls are coming from South Fulton. Thank you, Dominique. Next, we have Mike's question. What do you believe is the core issue in reducing the number of dogs and cats arriving at the shelter?
Well, I mean, we can go back as far as, COVID and things like that, where people, got dogs and then went back to work and couldn't keep them anymore. But more recently, you're looking at people can't afford their homes and they're moving into apartments, they're downsizing, and apartments have restrictions. So they can't keep their dogs, and then we'll turn them in. But Audrey, do you have anything further on that?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of something that we're really attempting to do, and it's quite a challenge for us as it is for everyone else. But we're trying to develop some resources with human services, because when you're working with companion animals, a lot of what separates pets from people are really human challenges people are facing that doesn't always directly stem from animals. If there is something, a medical need, veterinary costs have gone up a lot. So that's a really big challenge for people. But the number one reason why we see pets separated from their people is housing issues. And that can be just the cost of trying to find affordable housing, or it could be, as Chris was speaking to, breed specific legislation or issues with breed or even sizes of breeds. Those are something that's out of our control, where a lot of insurance companies have some restrictions and landlords are enforcing them. It makes it very challenging for people to find a good place to live with their pet. So that's definitely the number one reason that we see. There's also, as far as the number, spay and neuter has become more and more challenging. And I think that's something that a lot of people are trying to focus on right now, but it's quite frankly not very affordable for a lot of people. Lifeline Animal Project, we do have a low-cost spay neuter clinic in College Park that is more affordable for people. It does stay booked pretty regularly, because they're not a lot of low-cost, really accessible and affordable spay neuter options for people.
Okay. All right, so I hear you saying affordable housing as the number one issue, and lack of free resources for spay and neutering.
Yeah, I think that would help with a number of homeless pets that are out there. Because obviously if we don't have so many pets being born, we wouldn't need as many to go through a sheltering system. It's really hard to get on top of that. There is a national shortage that's certainly impacting us here in Atlanta with veterinarians. There's just not enough in the field. And there's not enough that are focused on spay neuter services. So it's harder and harder to come by. It's becoming an industry that's more challenging to work in.
And I think that goes to Ryan's question about prevention and how is the county prioritizing prevention? And I can go back to Joe and Vernon for that question about the county resources. He asked, can these be made free to save taxpayers money in dealing with animal emergencies and sheltering? And I mean, Ryan, as a commissioner, I can tell you that, you know, the bulk of the money that comes into the county is from property taxes. So there's not a way to provide more services if we don't have more property taxes coming in. So to make the services free, there would need to be a pot of money in order to make those services free. So while I understand that you would need to save taxpayers money, it would be almost impossible to have a pot of money if you didn't get more money from somewhere. So there would have to be an influx of resources that came from somewhere in order for those services that are being provided, even in a low-cost clinic, to make them free, or even to open up more reduced priced clinics for prevention activities. So I do hear you. Joe or Vernon, is there anything that you wanted to add from the county side about prevention?
So yes, actually the cities within the county contribute. They pay for animal services, for the animal control officers responding to calls, all the way to even part of the shelter. And a majority of that money comes from the city of Atlanta, because they are the ones that use most of the services, and most of the animals that we receive is from the city of Atlanta, for instance. So each one of the cities pay their share to contribute to animal services, the maintenance, the upkeep, everything, even the money that we pay to Lifeline as a vendor for the service.
Right. And so out of all of our cities, they're through intergovernmental agreements that we provide the services to the cities, and the cities pay us for those services. And those payments, of course, come from dollars that come into the cities, which are taxpayer dollars. So it's all, in the end, it all comes down to whether the cities have the resources to pay for the services that the county gives them. And in many instances, if you live in Atlanta and you live in Fulton, those are both the same. You're paying into the city and you're paying into the county for those services. So, it's always the constant juggling of resources and how they get allocated in order to provide the services ultimately to our constituents. All right, thank you, Ryan, for that great question. Let me go up here and ask this next question. Marley Wiggins wants to know if she can get some details from Joe and Vernon what training and decision logic dispatchers use for animal services calls, and how often their resources are updated.
So the 911 dispatchers are given specific protocols to follow when somebody calls in, certain questions that they ask, and basically they're based on a priority of danger. So if somebody's in imminent danger, that's given a higher priority of that call and an immediate dispatch. If it's a dog that's aggressive, let's just say, for example, a dog seen at a bus stop where children are present or near a school, police will be dispatched first along with the animal control officer. That comes from protocols that are established by 911.
Okay, thank you for that. And Marley, thank you for that question. I wanted to also thank Marley for her service. She is our appointee to the Animal Services Board, and I'm very glad that she was here and participating. And thank you for doing your volunteer service on that board. We appreciate you very much. Deborah has a question. With all this rain that we've been having this year, she's seen photos of the play yards at the shelter with ponding and significant water retention. What is the county doing to address this issue, and when do you expect the issues to be fixed with the water?
So this is a priority response for us. Working on it every day. In fact, I was out at the shelter this morning with some architects looking at the way the water is draining from the field, or should I say not draining from the field. So this is a top priority for the county. It's already in the works for them to come out and resolve the situation. So we should start working on it very soon, as far as like boots on the ground to get the areas cleaned up and hopefully get the situation resolved.
And can you just tell us a little bit about what those challenges are? I know that the facility is pretty new. What have been some of the challenges with why that water? Is it just a infrastructure, a structural issue, or what other challenges?
So part of it is Georgia red clay. So, but in all seriousness, it was designed to use these rubber pellets to act as a barrier. And what the experts are saying is that it was likely stacked too tight. So the water doesn't have the ability to drain down into the earth and just naturally settle into the ground. And the red clay is also a problem as well. So we're looking at several different options to either raise the rubber pellets up and to where it's not sitting so low and spaced out a little more, to also figuring out whether we're going to use concrete to resolve the situation or what option is best. So we're looking at what is the best way to permanently correct the problem, but also for it to be, for it to last, because we don't want to have to keep, going back and dealing with the situation. So what is cost effective? What is the most humane solution for the animals? And what is the most permanent solution that we can use to resolve that issue? So all this is in the works right now, and I am hoping here soon we will have boots on the ground, so to speak, to start working on the issue.
Okay, Vernon, thank you so much for that update. And I just want to welcome Rebecca Gwynn, who is the CEO and founder of Lifeline. She's been here since the start of the webinar, but I didn't get a chance to acknowledge her. And so I just wanted to say hello, Rebecca, and thank you for being here.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Thank you so much. Let's go to Robbie's question, and he has a factual question. Is it true Lifeline is using managed intake, the HASS model, HASS, not picking up animals or refusing animals on intake? Can anybody at Lifeline speak to that?
I'll start. I think Audrey can pick it up. That's not true. That's not a policy. We use what we call it's not even using. We have a program we consider consent based. So we try to help people with resources if resources are available. But we don't send people out without resources. The problem really is that by the time someone gets to the shelter, there aren't very many interventions available. So managed intake is kind of like a buzzword. But if animals need to come into the shelter, they come into the shelter. Now, years ago, I guess in 2020 with COVID, there was a different situation for all of us, right? Because everything was locked down. And so we were on an emergency intake basis only. But we do not want to do anything with the people or the animals that are going to put them in harm's way. So it is not a policy that we subscribe to. Audrey, do you want to say more about that?
Yeah, just to point out, the consent-based programming that we have that Rebecca's sort of speaking to, that's the only thing that really works. When somebody comes in with a pet, they need something, usually for a place for the pet to go, which would be an animal shelter if they're within the county. They're either found within the county, it's a Fulton County resident. We do try to, when we can, do our surrenders by appointment when it's safe and healthy for everyone involved, both the animal and the people. But the consent-based programs are really the only thing that work. And I think that simply turning people away doesn't allow any room for you to have those conversations. Those are our friendly finder programs. So we have, if you found a pet in Fulton County and you bring it to our doors or you give us a call, we'd ask if you're able to foster the pet for the stray hold, which is a 3-day stray hold. we ask if we can provide a crate to you, whatever you may need to be able to keep the pet out of the shelter. We go ahead and we do their physical intake with their vaccinations, and then hopefully we can send them back home with you. This helps keep the pet. Most of the time, pets are lost if they are in fact lost, which often we find that they are. They're lost within their community. So the hope would be that the foster can work with their neighbors to get the pet back home. And if not, most often it turns into a conversion where the finder actually wants to adopt. But it's always a good situation if the pet doesn't have to come into the shelter, and if we're able to support, and it never has to be sheltered, it could go through the system, still gets the support it needs. We still post it on our website so that it can hopefully go back to an owner if the finder isn't able to find them. But that's our most successful program. And we do believe in we have to have those conversations to even have the chance to make that program work.
Audrey, is there ever a situation, just to dispel, well, I'm gonna help dispel a couple of myths right now. Is there ever a situation where you do refuse an animal? What is that situation?
I mean, if they're not found within the county, sometimes I have seen some posts go out where we turned somebody away and it actually wasn't a pet that was within the county. Although we have had situations where an animal is come in and they're injured, and we wouldn't turn away an animal that's, critically injured for any reason in our parking lot before at least getting them stable. But no, there wouldn't be any reason why they should be turned away.
Okay, here's another myth. Is Lifeline in partnership with Best Friends?
No, we're not.
Okay.
We're not affiliated with Best Friends. I know people at Best Friends. We view them in some respects as a funding source. When we had, I guess wasn't last year, it was the year before, we had the outbreak of canine flu, and we also had to open really an emergency shelter at we rented the old Atlanta Humane Society, and Best Friends was one of the funders that helped us do that. They have helped subsidize community cat surgeries in the past, but we're not affiliated. We submit grant applications to them just like we would PetSmart Charities and Petco Love. Any of the other animal welfare funders. We are not affiliated with Best Friends.
Okay, thank you for that answer.
Sure.
Ryan asks, when colonies of community cats are called into animal control, what happens to all the unvetted stray cats?
Chris, I'll probably have you step in too, but just to start, we do have a community community cat coordinator that tries to see if it's safe to be able to turn them back, to have them what's called SNR, shelter neuter return. If it's a safe situation for the cats, a major life-saving program for cats is to return them after they've been sterilized, if they can be safe there, back to where they lived. So that's one of the main things, is that we would go through a list of different situations to determine whether or not that's safe for that to happen.
Okay, and Ryan had asked, are they picked up, vetted, and returned in a shelter neuter return scenario? And I think you just answered that, so.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the situation. It doesn't always happen. We do have to determine what's the most appropriate placement for the cat. But often it is. And sometimes we do have neighborhood cats that are owned, they're indoor-outdoor cats. And so we want to make sure that they can get back to their owners as well.
Okay.
I think it's important to emphasize. So the ordinance in Fulton County doesn't prohibit free roaming cats. So our officers don't really have an ordinance to enforce in that situation, and don't have the bandwidth to be just trapping cats. So we offer the shelter neuter return program through Fulton County Animal Services for cats that are brought in. We Lifeline, separately from Fulton County Animal Services, has different support programs for community cat caretakers, and that's you can find out more about that on Lifeline's website. But we generally will not deploy an animal control officer to trap healthy cats. Now, if there's an injured cat, of course, that's different. But if it's just a healthy outdoor cat, there's no ordinance violation there per se.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Natalie asks the question, what are my options if I suspect an animal has been intentionally harmed, but don't have clear evidence of a crime?
You
Is
can
that,
contact,
yeah, I think,
contact 911, and once you contact 911, an officer can be dispatched. We would then investigate.
so is it similar to a care call where you want, for someone to come and check on the situation? Is it that type of call you can make and an officer will come?
That's correct. A welfare check?
Welfare check.
Yes, to ensure the safety of the animal. We respond to all 911 calls
Okay.
to make sure that all animals are okay and they're not in bad situations. They have food, water, shelter, things of that nature.
Brent asks the question, I think this is a very good question, and I think this, Brent, goes back to resources. But he said getting residents to spay or neuter their pets seems like the obvious solution to shelter overcrowding. What can be done to encourage this? We've seen many events that, you know, whether it's community organizations or elected official offices, to have these type of programs in the community. We just have to continue talking about it. Awareness is the most important means of getting people to act. So we have to just continue to encourage people. I mean, I'm having this town hall right now so that we can perhaps dispel some of the myths that run throughout the community about the animal services in Fulton County. So we can take the information back to our communities and we can say, here are the things that were talked about for prevention. Here are the things you can do if you find yourself in this situation. These exact types of conversations are the ones that can help to do to move the conversation along and bring more awareness to it. I don't think the preventative action of spay and neutering is new. I think people have been saying it for, you know, I mean, for as long as I can remember, seeing commercials about it on television, but we just have to actually get people to do it. And that is going to be the way that we can keep the population down. So Brent, thank you for that. I, for one, will work to continue to bring these types of conversations to the forefront and also to hold events where people can take advantage of those services. Let's go to this. Are we tracking and reporting health and safety statistics in the county? The number of bite cases and severity, proportion of bites by dogs with unverified vaccination records? I think this is a question for either Joe or Vernon. Do we have any kind of tracking of what is happening out in the field as it relates to these type of incidents in the county?
So Chris can explain exactly what Lifeline does, but the short answer is yes. So the bites are reported to the state through a program. For instance, if somebody calls 911 and says they were bit by a dog, animal control will respond out to the scene. They will get the information from the person that's bit, make contact with the dog owner, and establish whether or not that dog has been vaccinated against rabies. And then there's a quarantine process that's involved in that. And I'll let Chris take it from there.
There's a 10-day quarantine process where we, at times, to keep dogs out of the shelter, we'll do home quarantine. It just depends on the situation and the severity of the bite. And so if it's if it's possible to keep them there, they'll keep them in the house and keep them away from folks, because obviously we want to wait that 10-day period to make sure that they don't have any, they're not infected with rabies.
Okay, thank you. So I think the answer is yes, there is tracking going on. And where could somebody go to see that information?
I'm not sure whether the officers report it to the health department. I'm not sure if the health department has a database that you can go online That's something that I would have to research and see. But
Okay.
I believe it's called SIMS, that the officers enter the information into the state database.
Okay, well, in our follow-up email to everybody who's on this webinar, we will follow up and find the answer to that question of where you can find information for tracking the incidents that happen with the calls that come in, and we'll provide that information in a follow-up email. There is a question from Trey about housing policy. It reads, given the growing number of families forced to surrender their pets due to housing restrictions, do you have any plans to introduce or support local legislation that promotes more equitable and accessible housing for pet owners, especially those in marginalized or low-income communities? And would you consider addressing future housing policy discussions? Thank you so much, Trey, for that. Housing policy does not come out of the county. It comes out of each city that is a part of the county. So all 15 cities that are in Fulton County have their own housing policy initiatives, and they have their legislators, whether it's a city council member on the City Council of Atlanta or any other city of the 15 that are in Fulton County. That is where the legislation would come out of. Fulton County only has a very small part that is not a city, which is called the unincorporated part of Fulton County, and that is where is only a small part that we would have housing legislation for that area. Having pet-specific housing legislation, I will tell you, will be difficult considering all of the affordable housing challenges that cities are already facing. But that is an issue, if you are passionate about it, that you definitely would speak to whichever city you live in to speak to your legislators about. We support the cities in affordable housing initiatives by giving, the county gives many of the cities subsidies, grants, funding from HUD to go towards affordable housing measures. And we have always done that. And we just did it about 2 meetings ago. We gave $3 million from a HUD grant to combat affordable housing issues. So we do play a role in housing, affordable housing legislation, but how it gets passed is through each city's legislative body. So wherever you live, East Point, College Park, Alpharetta, Johns Creek, Union City, Palmetto, wherever you live, that's Roswell, that's where you would go to deal with housing legislation. Thank you for that question. Do stray cats get immediately released after being spayed or neutered? Usually house cats will receive some care after surgery, but I think we answered that question. Would someone from Lifeline answer that question again? Do stray cats get immediately released after being spayed or neutered?
No, it's not an immediate release. There's a recovery time that's allowed. I believe male cats are held, female cats are held longer than male cats for the recovery time. You do in really sound community cat management. You don't want to keep the cat out of that colony or out of their outdoor environment too long. So the idea is to get them back, but they do need to recover well enough from surgery, certainly from the anesthesia and then the surgery. So I believe the national standard is something at least like 24 hours for male cats, and then over 48 hours for a female cat.
Okay, and Rachel, I see your question about wanting to know how Lifeline service statistics, outcomes, and costs compare to similar organizations in other cities, and we can find, a study or some sort of comparative statistic about how other similar situated cities do things. We would have to, we wouldn't be able to compare, all of the 15 cities in Fulton County, but we could take the biggest one, Atlanta, and bump it up against another similarly situated city and see how they do their services, and we can send that information in the follow-up. So thank you for that. How many animal control officers do we have on patrol in the county on any particular night?
On average, it's 3 to 4.
34?
3
Oh, 3 to 4. Because I was like 34, that's great. Okay, 3 to 4. Okay.
3 to 4, yes, ma'am.
3 to 4, Dominique, 3 to 4 animal.
At night.
I'm sorry?
That's at night.
That's at night, okay, and
Right.
tell us the difference of during the day.
So during the day, we'll have 4 to 5, it depending, and we also have 3 supervisors. We have one that's a day shift. Their shift is 7 to 3. We have a split shift now that we've just added, which is the 10 to 6, and then we also have a 3 to 11, which is the evening shift. The reason for the third supervisor is to provide more guidance out on the road. We do have some young officers, and so making sure that they have all the tools they need and the guidance that they need to get the job done and get it done properly.
Okay, Chris, thank you for that. You know, a very touchy topic about euthanizing animals. There is a question about, you know, specific dates when you do it or whatever, but just speak generally to that process and how that comes to be, just as a general procedure.
I'll do my best to do this one. Rebecca, you can chime in if you like.
Audrey, I think the question is actually referring to the urgent process. I tried to look
Yeah.
in the chat and see the questions. So.
Okay. Yeah, we do have an urgent process. It's been really tough for our team to deal with the urgent process, and I think that we're still trying to establish a process that works really well, both for the staff, the advocates and volunteers, and the community. But we are committed to making sure that animals don't lose their lives in an animal shelter whenever possible, and certainly not without advocating for them. So we also need to maintain a humane housing here at the shelter. And so for that reason, we have certain thresholds where we try to keep our capacity around 376, depending on what types of, and I'm speaking specifically to dogs right now, because that's more of our issue. For 376 for dogs is every kennel being full. However, depending on what kind of pets we have at the time, what kind of dogs we have, sometimes when we have a litter, we can have 400, or so dogs in the shelter and actually be able to achieve that humane housing. But we do keep an eye constantly on how many animals we're caring for, and we want to let the community know where we're at and what we need to do to be able to keep those levels at a manageable level for everyone. We do post every week on Tuesday. Every single day we post where we're at. So the community can go to our website and see how many dogs we have in the shelter at any given time. And then that always is trying to go down to the goal of 376. Otherwise, our intake has really increased over the last 2 years, particularly this last year. And so we're trying to come up with some methods to make sure that we're being open and transparent with the community and letting them know what we need from them. It has been a challenge because we want for the community to adopt a pet that works for them. And so we would encourage people to come in and adopt any pet. We keep trying to sort of advocate for any pet that leaves the shelter into a home that suits you is really what we are hoping that the community would do. Part of our challenge is that we want to advocate for the pets that are at risk, meaning that they might be hitting a euthanasia list, to try to close that gap with the space issues that we have. The community does tend to focus on that, which is really tough. I would ask if you're interested in adopting a pet. We have so many dogs here that are fantastic. Please come in and look for one that would suit you well. We have great volunteers and staff that get to know these dogs. Of course, we're seeing them in a shelter environment. We can't guarantee these things, but we work really diligently to make sure that we place pets either in foster or in adoptive homes with people who are well matched for them. So consider the way that you live your life, and please come in and adopt.
Yes, thank you for that, Audrey. Jennifer asked the question, how much does the city collect on fines and fees from citations annually? I do not have the answer to that, but I certainly will highlight this question and go back and do some research. If anybody either from Fulton County or from Lifeline has an answer to that, I'll pause a second. Does anybody know the answer to that? Okay, I will take that question and it will be one of the follow-up questions that we will answer, and you will be receiving a follow-up email with that information that we were able to get. How many people are giving up their animals on average monthly?
We can look that up and you can come back. We can come back.
Yeah,
to
give
it
me
real
just
quick.
1 minute and I'll
Yeah.
look up the most recent statistics.
Okay, okay. Um, let's see, okay, I'm gonna go to one of these, questions that I had here. Someone asked a very, basic question that I think is important. My neighbor does not have their dog on a leash. Can animal services come get the dog from the owner because they're unleashed?
No, if they're on their property, and they're in control of their dog, it could be by voice commands, then that's not a violation that we would, impound on.
Okay, what about a very noisy dog that barks all night long or is just very, very noisy and you call it a noise complaint? How does that get resolved?
So we don't have a county ordinance that covers, barking dog or noise complaints. That would be the police department, your local police department, that would handle that as a noise complaint.
Okay, all right. Under what circumstances can an officer come up and actually remove the animal from a home?
I'll refer to, the code section on that. So it varies. Dogs or cats with, so hang on, I'll go straight to it. It's kind of lengthy, so. I don't
Okay,
know if-
well, we will, you know what, thank you for that, and actually, I will send out that code section. And I will refer with a link, everybody to that code section to answer that question about when an animal can be removed from a home. So I didn't mean to put you on the spot, Chris, for a legal answer, but thank you for that. We will get that code section in the follow-up email and send it out to everybody.
My pleasure.
Commissioner, I think it is generally, we have to, as a part of law enforcement, just like, police or the things you see on TV, we can't enter someone's residence without a warrant. And so we rely on our partners in the Fulton County Police to secure those for us. There's something called exigent circumstances. If it's plainly visible that there's a crime being committed, then the police have the ability to go in, as does animal services. But as far as walking into demanding entry into someone's home to remove their animal, we have to abide by the same standards that the police department does.
Okay, under what circumstances, can, somebody be denied an adoption or the ability to volunteer? I know if I walk into Lifeline, I wanna adopt or I wanna volunteer, but I'm turned away. What are those circumstances that someone might be denied?
Well, it would be hard to sort of list all of them. I'll start with adoption. I mean, our goal is always to successfully place pets in homes, and we do abide by a non-judgmental approach. So we're not looking for people to be wealthy or to have, have immense resources to be able to provide a loving home. We strongly believe that pets enrich people's lives and they can, generally speaking, provide great homes. But in situations where we feel like it might not be a safe home for the pet, or it's typically most of this is done through matchmaking. We want to match the person with the best pet we can here. If we feel like it's not a great fit there, we can move forward. But usually we would try to, rather than just outright deny an adoption, we would try to find a home that a pet that would be more suitable for them. When we don't feel like we're able to accomplish that, or we don't feel that it would be safe, I'd have a hard time speaking to the different reasons why. We do have some situations if somebody was in our system for committing cruelty, obviously they would be on that list. But outside of that, if we didn't feel that they were going to provide a safe home, we do have the ability to deny the adoption.
Okay, thank you. All right, this is a question for Fulton County. She asks, we hear about why there are 11 out of 22 contractually assigned heads, wait a minute, assign staff for field services. What are they doing to, oh, okay, so there's a shortage in field services. I think that's what this question is asking. What are you doing to address that deficiency, and what obstacles are being faced in staffing field services, and what are the proposed solutions?
So I'll comment on that, Commissioner Dow. We are actively interviewing. We have multiple interviews per week. We are looking for the right candidates because it's not an entry-level position. These officers, they're going to be officers. They're going to be interacting with citizens. They need to be not scared of animals, dogs especially. When they get aggressive and things like that, they need to know that becomes a difficulty to break that habit. When you do have someone that is afraid of an animal and they want to be in this line of work because they own a pet, and they're good with their pet, but it's different when you're out on the street and these animals are scared or afraid, and you also have to know like the behavior and things. So that's why we put them through field training, but it's not for everybody. So
Okay,
we're diligently in the process of hiring. So if you know anybody, please send them our way.
and where would they go if they are interested?
They can go on our county website, or we actually are posted on Indeed, NACA, and others. I'm not sure of every single one of them, but those are the ones that the main ones.
Okay, Chris, if you could put that website into the chat specifically for officers, field services, that would be helpful. And if anybody wants to pass that on to anybody that might want to apply, that would be really great. I'm going to take this as the last question, and then I'm going to just close up with asking for resources both from Fulton County and from Lifeline. Rachel asked, is there a lot of turnover of pets being adopted and then being returned after they've been adopted? I think that's probably an Audrey question.
It happens. It's not a very high percentage of our overall adoption. But it does happen. We do have a program, a trial adoption, because we really do want to make sure that works. Sometimes people feel a little bit more comfortable when it's honestly, it's a little bit of just a different, you can return your pet. And we will take it as an adoption return, even if it was adopted, but people feel more comfortable with the trial adoption. So we will sometimes have where it just didn't work out well. Sometimes situations will change, but it's a very low percentage of our overall adoptions that get returned.
Okay. And so Audrey, now, since I have you here, I just want to ask, as we come down to closing up with 6 minutes left, what are some things that you would like citizens to understand about Lifeline, and anything that citizens could do that could be helpful to not having a negative experience, or are there just some things that you wish you could just tell folks and that it would help out? I want this to be an open forum for you to also say things that we could be doing that could make the situation better.
I think that it's talking to your neighbors. If you find a pet, I see this as being something that is very successful. Go ahead and call it in. If you see a pet that it needs to be removed. But if you're able to safely place a dog in your fenced-in yard, for example, or something, until an officer is able to come pick it up and post on your neighborhood forum or something like that, I see a lot of successful returns before a pet has to come to the shelter. That is a huge help, because neighbors know their neighborhood much better than we do. So whenever it's possible to reach out to your neighbors and let them know, hey, I just found this pet. Does anybody know that can be really helpful? Of course, if you feel unsafe, do not approach the pet and give us a call. That is what we're here for. But I think that would be one thing. And to let the neighbor, even if we pick the pet up and you didn't even touch the pet, to let them know, like, hey, I just saw this dog. If you can snap a picture, it's at Fulton County Animal Services. I think a lot of people, even though there's so much out, a lot of people don't know what's going to happen when they come to an animal shelter to try to reclaim. Overall, reclaims are a very low outcome for us. And that's national, and that is true here. And I think a lot of that comes from communication. And a lot of that can happen in community. So just let them know, hey, go to the shelter, pick up your pet. Generally speaking, would like to be able to make that connection, that could be a good opportunity for us to speak with a pet owner. If a pet got loose and they need some resources, or they need to understand why, or maybe they need to know the ordinances to understand, how to, what's required of them as a pet owner. That's an opportunity for us to make a connection with the community. And a lot of times we need a little bit of help to get that word out. I think people are deterred from coming to animal shelters pretty often, and we'd like to dispel that. And also, while I have just a couple minutes, I did want to mention our Pets for Life program, which is through Lifeline Animal Project. That's a Lifeline funded program, but I think it's very relevant to this call because it's a door-to-door community outreach program, because we're talking about some of the challenges that people are facing with resources. This is a completely non-judgmental program that operates in 6 different zip codes, which are within Fulton County. It's 30310, 30311, 30312, 30314, 30315, and 30318. Also 30331. Sorry, I'm getting tongue-tied. But if you live in those areas, there is a group of, it's a separate program that can give food, help with from time to time, some housing resources for if you need some additional funding for pet fees, things like that. A lot of food, low cost spay neuter services, and free free services for spay neuter. It does encourage your neighbors, if you see that they are struggling with resources, to give them a call, because it is something that we want to be very friendly and very welcoming to the community to be able to enter that program. So let them know about the Pets for Life program.
Thank you. And can you just one final time give the phone number that people can call Lifeline if they have a issue, or the best website way to reach you?
Sure. Our main line is 404-613-0358. And you hit option 2 if you would like to get field services, and that routes you to the 911 center. If you hit the main line, you have different departments. I'm very excited rolling out a new reception position, which I'm hoping will help us a lot with the phones, because that is a challenge for us. And so we're really working on, Lifeline has so many great programs. And so one of my main focuses in my role right now is how people can access them. And there's a lot going on and a lot of different questions that people have. And I know that many people want to reach us by phone rather than having to come in person. And so we're really trying to work on that. There are also a lot of resources on our website, which I believe Rebecca just put in the chat, the main website. I think she sent specifically to the career page, but it does send you to our website to check out our website as well.
And if I may, Commissioner,
Yes.
South Fulton, while they have a lot of calls and they are inundated, actually, I wanted to correct that. After looking at the data, it's actually the city of Atlanta that has the most calls.
Okay, and that was the very first question of who has the most frequent calls, where do they come from? And you first said South Fulton, but correction, it is the city of Atlanta. So
Yes,
thank you,
ma'am.
Chris, for correcting that. I want to thank Rebecca, Audrey, and Chris for joining us tonight from Lifeline and giving us this valuable information. I'd like to just bring back up Vernon and Joe from Fulton County's Emergency EMS and just ask if they have any final comments that they would like to give out, any information that citizens need to know, or any advice about anything that the residents have been asking.
No, there was just a question on how we compare as far as how we fund the program. And we originally set up the program when we compared the county compares itself to 5 basically county regions around the southeast, include like Charlotte, Mecklenburg, Orange County, Florida, and others. That's how we looked at. We were very much below those jurisdictions, and we actually came up to those jurisdictions and surpassed some of them just recently. But it's been years in the making, let's just say. But we do look at that quite a bit, at least quarterly. I take a look at those funding lines for those other jurisdictions.
Okay, thank you for that.
And I would like to, I'm sorry.
No, Vernon, please go.
I would like to add, if the community wants to help themselves, is make sure that your pets are spayed and neutered and also microchipped. Because if your pet is picked up by an animal control officer, or even if somebody takes it to a veterinarian, they're able to scan it for that microchip, and they can get your information off that chip and give you a call and let you know that your dog's either at the shelter or at a veterinarian clinic.
Great.
And
Thank you.
I do believe we provide low-cost microchipping and low-cost pet vaccinations at Fulton County Animal Services. You can check the websites for the actual hours. I want to say it's like 3 or 4 days a week in the afternoon. So please take advantage of that. It's very low cost.
Excellent. Thank you, Rebecca. As we wrap up tonight's Mo Knows Animal Services Town Hall, I want to sincerely thank each and every one of you for taking the time to be a part of this vital conversation. To all of our guests, thank you very much for providing this information and making yourselves available. Your participation reflects just how deeply our community cares about the welfare of animals and the systems that support them. I hope tonight's discussion helps shed light on how animal services works, what challenges we're facing, certainly challenges, and the opportunities we have to build a more responsive and a humane system. These are conversations we must keep on having, and I'm committed to making sure your voices are heard every step of the way. If you have any follow-up questions, my office is always here to support you. You can reach us at 404-612-8226. 404-612-8226. I'm sure that's being put in the chat, or connect directly with the District 4 staff. Their contact information is being dropped in the chat already. And don't forget to follow me at the Mo Ivory, that's THEMO Ivory, like the soap, on Instagram to stay connected to everything happening in District 4. And I welcome any feedback from you so that we can continue to service you in the way that you deserve, the information that's happening with your dollars. So thank you for joining us tonight, and everybody have a wonderful evening. Thank you again.